Hello, ADNC family. Emma Ansah here, and I'm here with Rosemarie Havsom. She is our resident holistic health coach on African Diaspora News Channel. If you have not watched Rosemary, you had better, because she's giving us some real gems about our health, and particularly Black people, because we know Black people have a lot of the things, right? The top things that happen, the blood pressure, the blood sugar, and all of those things. So, I'm happy that Rosemary is joining me today on this live stream. By the way, Rosemary also lives in Canada. So we're both here in what we refer to as the Great White North. And we're here to talk about a very important topic. But before we get started, and while we wait for people to join, Rosemary, tell us a little bit more about yourself and what you do. Can you hear me, Rosemary?
Yes, I can. Can you hear
Okay.
me?
Yes.
Okay.
Tell us about yourselves. Oh, I think we lost Rosemary. Well, she'll come back. In any event, as I was saying, you know how it works when it's live. Things can go a little bit technical, but she'll be back. And when she does come back, I'll have her tell you a little bit more about herself. But as I said, we're going to be talking about the Black community and the history of Black people in Canada. Because why are we talking about it? We're talking about it because every time I report about the truth of what goes on with Black people in Canada, I get messages from the folks. Here comes Rosemary now, who
There we
tell
are.
me, Rosemary's back. Hey, Sheila, how
Hey.
are you? Um, they tell me that why don't I go back to where I came from? Why don't you just go back to Africa? Or why don't you go back to where you came from if you're so unhappy? When really all I'm doing is I'm just showing you people and us, our community, what the folks, some of them, are doing to us. And so I decided, you know what? Enough is enough. It's about time I give them a little history lesson on the fact that Black people were in this here country, Canada, since the 1600s. So I'm going to be doing a series of events on Black history and the contributions that Black people, indelible contributions to this country. And Rosemary is joining me, and she's going to, bring it to us from a health perspective as well. So
Yes.
today's episode is going to be about Africville. So before we play some of the videos and information about Africville and the people of Africville, fortunate enough to hear from some of them talking about the community, I'm just going to have Rosemary just tell us a little bit of history about Africville and the people, how they got there, and its origin.
Mhm. Okay. Well, let me just rewind it a little bit because I kind of dropped off for a minute. So let me catch up. So, yes, my name is Rosemarie Havsom. I am the resident certified holistic wellness coach on the African Diaspora News Channel. That's also what I do in my life outside of the channel. And it's so important to me to help our people, especially, learn more about how to help themselves gain health freedom so that we're not a slave anymore. Because remember, we're emancipated now, right? So we're not slaves anymore to this time to a system of sickness that keeps us enslaved and robs us of our vitality. So that's where I come in, want to help people to get better. And this whole topic of Africville is so important. It's so incredible because it kind of goes back so many centuries, and yet people haven't really have a top of mind understanding about the significance of a place called Africville. So let's just do a really quick historical bringing it all into play. So it started with the British. Is it any wonder that we're starting with me with the accent? I don't know. But it started with the British, and the British said to their slaves, they said, hey, help us fight this war against the Americans, because the Americans, you guys are so rowdy and you got out of control. And Britain was there saying, hey, we want to control what's going on here in this new world. And the Americans kicked their butts. So The British said to their slaves, hey, if you come with us, number one, if you fight in this war against the Americans, we promise you that you will be able to have land and you'll have your freedom, because we're going to go to Canada as one of our colonies. So, hey, what do you say? So, yes, thousands of people. You can correct me on the amount because I'm not clear how many blacks people decided to go with the British, fight in the war, and then go and travel to Canada, landing in Nova Scotia. They landed in deplorable conditions. Most of them that landed there were quite ill because there wasn't enough food. They didn't have the proper clothing. They were not prepared for the amount of travel time and then landing in this place where there's no real shelter. When they were told that they were going to get land, they were given land that could have nothing of sustenance could go on that land. They couldn't even farm and plant food to take care of themselves and their families. So a lot of them were quite ill. So it started out that way, where they landed in this new place called Nova Scotia, which is one of the eastern provinces of Canada, jutting into the Atlantic Ocean. And when they got there, it was nothing like what was promised. It's kind of sort of, of mind of the 40 acres and a mule situation, where ex-slaves in the United States were told, oh, you'll get 40 acres and a mule and blah, blah. Yeah, that didn't happen. So it didn't happen to the Canadian black population either. So they get there, there was nothing for them to have sustenance. And then it was two forward thinkers who decided that they were going to buy land. And that's how they ended up buying the land that then would become Africville. Throwing it back to you, Emma.
Yes, thank you for that. And they called it Africville because that's where the paved roads and everything ended, right? And then that's where they stopped everything. So basically anything humane and civilized stopped. And so that's where Africville begun. And we're talking about deplorable conditions and everything that the black people were going through, yet they still managed to build a city within a city in Africville and made a community for themselves. Let's just see what some of the comments here. A lot of untold history about Canada and the black folks who traveled there. Yep, the Lost House of Israel, indeed. Thank you so much for joining, everybody. So I'm going to play a short video of you're going to hear from some of the residents of Africville. You're going to get a little bit of a history about Africville. It's about 7 minutes, so hang out with us. It's really important and useful information. And then after that, we'll talk about it a little more. And then we will talk about hockey, because that's another thing in this here country that black hockey players go through so much racism when they want to play hockey here in Canada. Okay. Meanwhile, it is black people who invented the sport. So we're going to talk about that as well. But without further ado, let's go ahead and play a little history about Africville.
About 400 people lived here in this Nova Scotia community, most of them descendants of slaves who had jumped ship, others who came here with the Empire Loyalists. In the 1840s, they bought land and began building their homes, helter-skelter, up the hillside from the harbor.
If somebody came and asked you today where you come from, what would you say?
I say I'm from Africville. I always say it, and all my friends and everyone I know from Africville, that's where when they're asked where they're from, they say Africville.
Africville.
And be proud of it?
And be very proud of it. Be very proud of it. And then don't give me now I'm telling you God's truth.
We all live in our own homes out here. Detached homes, where our children can run around.
We're free here. We're not contained with this, we're not mixed up with this environment of prejudice or anything. We're people by ourselves.
We never ask nobody for nothing.
Well, Africville to me at a young age was my universe. To me that was the world, just the basin and the hills around in Africville.
I remember coming home from school. You could look over And everybody's house was painted a different color, like rainbow. My golly, it was pretty.
The community itself meant so much. Playing, swimming, wake up in the morning, run right down, have a nice gravy, jump right off the rock in the water, tied in a rope.
Baseball.
It was a special day, a day that you would never forget. We would sing all the way down to the water side. They take you one by one and baptize you.
The Son, I am saved.
And where Africville ended, the city dump began. And as we drove through the dump, I saw my brothers scavenging on the dump.
The majority of the people from Africville felt the dump was a blessing because through the dump we were able to get the materials that we couldn't afford to buy, what other people threw away, windows, boards, nails, furniture. I used to go to the dump in the morning. I used to collect metals, bottles, anything salvageable. We used to salvage and sell back to the city. The city wants to redevelop it over our people, and I don't think that is fair. I think we should have a chance to redevelop our property as well as anybody else. It's our property been for the last 200 years. It's one thing in this, when you're in this country and you own a piece of property, you're not a second-class citizen. That's why my people own this land. They work for it, they toil for it, and they work to get this little piece of land that they own, and they try to hang on it. But when your land is being taken away from you and you ain't offered nothing, then you become a peasant in any man's country.
I often said to newspapers who came and said that there was a slum, I resented it, and I still resent anyone who calls Africville a slum. Slum usually are people who are renters and a place where the homeowners won't keep the property up. But they were a proud people. They did the best they could. I remember, for instance, they saw how Africville people were on the welfare. And so I did some research with some friends of mine, and I found that in proportion, there were more white people in Halifax on welfare than the people in Africville.
Africville people were people who didn't blow the top. They lived there, and unless you looked down over the hill, maybe you thought they were all in Bedford Basin, but they were still down there living, minding their own business, because we didn't need anybody else. We didn't need to go to anybody. They made their living, they worked on different companies, and they worked and paid their taxes.
Living conditions. That was one of the things that they used against us. The city saying that our living conditions they were substandard, and even today in some of the articles that you might read, you'll see living conditions brought up quite often. Maybe they weren't up to standard to the people who set the standards, but to us, that was home, no matter what the houses looked like. There were other communities, and not just black communities, that had also the same type of living conditions, if not worse. But we were close to the city, and we were predominantly black. So our living conditions it was used as a reason to move us. Even though our situation could have been easily upgraded with some plumbing, some paved roads, the city wouldn't give us this.
I've been here so long, it doesn't make any difference to me. But it's the young people, they got their life to live. Well, I'm over that now, a woman my age. All I'm putting trust in God to spare me. I don't know what hour or what minute I might go. But still, I love my home. And this house here was one of the best houses in the settlement.
Portia White taught here. She taught school because there was a school in Africville until it was torn down. Duke Ellington, a jazz musician, used to come down and jam here all the time, and they say he had a friend here. And we've had a boxer, George Dixon, who came out of Africville, and he was actually a 3-time world champion, and he invented shadow boxing, which is used to train people in Africville.
So that was a nice little hodgepodge of, the community. You heard from some of the community residents that lived there. You heard some of the greats that came out of there, like Duke Ellington and Portia White, and you heard that how proud they were. They never asked for anything. They never wanted for anything. And you heard the pastor talk about welfare. And true to today, right, Rosemary?
Absolutely.
I mean, who's on welfare more, and who's taking food stamps and all of that? Isn't it the folks? And then they're talking about it being a slum when the folks, like this man said, they were, if not worse, their conditions were worse. They were just trying to find a reason to run these people out of there. They were kind of trying to Tulsa the moment. Here's some of the things that the residents of Africville built: farms, schools, churches, trade networks. They skilled Black workers. Because they didn't have roads, they did DIY and they built their own roads and paved their own roads. They actually, as it relates to sewage, because they were not even helping them with that. Garbage wasn't being picked up, all of that stuff. They actually created their own clean water. They had their own garbage collection, okay? They paved roads and they made their own sewage. They literally built a city within a city, okay? And they were like, we don't want anything from you. You don't want to give it to us? We're building our own. And they were thriving.
And that's the thing, Emma, that people always want to gloss over, is the fact that there is something to be said about Black people's mental resiliency and their innovativeness to come up with all of this. It's like, okay, you don't want to give us plumbing. All right, we'll sort out our own sewage and where that's going to go. You don't want to give us garbage removal. Okay, we'll do what we can. We're actually going to reduce, reuse, and recycle from your garbage, and we're going to reduce ours so that we can live effectively, efficiently, and thrive. And it's just amazing to me that even under those conditions, that the other folks don't want Black people to just live, because they're not. Who are they harming?
They were not harming anyone. And then you also hear one of the young residents talking about going to the dump and picking up whatever that they dumped there and making a living by reselling it back to the city. So imagine the things that you were dropping off as garbage, they ended up buying back. And I am going to wager that those Black people probably restored it into a good condition, right? Without them even knowing that it was something that they threw away. And that is the brilliance of Black people, okay? And so at the end of the day, they needed Black people. Black people contributed to their economy, and they were benefiting from all of the innovations and the brilliance of Black people. But in usual fashion, and true to today, and true to the days of Tulsa, they were not happy. So they found their way to run Black people out of there. And they bulldozed them out of there. And now I believe it's a park. Like that area is a park. And there's still a lot of infighting.
Exactly. And you know what that reminds me of, Emma? That reminds me of what happened with Central Park in the United States, right? Because that was Black owned. That was a Black community that was thriving.
Yes, it was.
And once again, the others want to come in there, shut it all down. And what do they do with it? Instead, they make it into a park. And the history of that was buried along with the raising of that community. And it's the same thing that happened in Africville, that not only did they bulldoze them out, but because then they couldn't rightfully take over that land, they then just made it into a park and then put up a memorial museum, and to sort of give people their Juneteenth, if you will.
Yes, but here's the whole message behind this is that it was Black people that were responsible for any success in Africville. Okay.
Yeah.
It wasn't the folks. The folks were benefiting on the backs of Black people. So
Exactly.
here again is an example of a community that, slaves came. Okay. Because before Africville was there, they weren't thriving. The folks weren't
Exactly.
thriving there. They were not thriving there. It wasn't
Mhm.
until the Black people came, despite them not having any major human things that people,
Mhm.
we all have the benefit of, going and putting our garbage at the curb and somebody comes and picks it up, or, recycled and clean water coming through our taps and all that stuff. But they still, I repeat, they still managed to make it happen for them. They had clean water. It's like, oh, so you're not giving me, oh, that's okay. We know what to do. But in the
Exactly.
end, they like they were the ones on welfare. Okay.
Mhm.
Black people were thriving. And as you can see, they were happy. They were happy. They were going to church. They were baptizing each other.
Mhm.
They were happy, and they were very proud to say that they are from Africville. So this is to all of the folks that keep telling us, go back to where you came from. These people were here before you, the people who are telling us to go back to where we came from,
Mhm.
were even here. Okay. So
Exactly.
Black people have been in this country, as I said, since the 1600s. The very
Yes.
first Black man to reach soil here in Canada was in the 1600s, and his name was Matthew de Costa. And I
Mhm.
will be talking about him in the
He's
next
awesome.
episode, because
Yeah.
he is a very, very important, very important, very important
Yes, he is.
figure in Canada.
Mhm.
The other thing that Black people did in Africville is they cleared forests, built homes and roads, they worked shipyards and docks, they farmed land and ran successful businesses. They helped
Yes.
train militias. They helped train militias and fought in wars
Mhm.
that secured colony survival. Okay. Let's see, what else did they do? Because there's so much and I don't want to miss anything. Okay. Some of the things that they invented: informal community healthcare, food sharing systems, elder support networks, collective child rearing practices. This was long before Canada pretended to care about social programs. Okay.
Mhm.
This is what was going on there that people don't talk about. All they talk about is it was a slum and the slaves were there and we bulldozed them out because
Yeah.
they were bringing down the value
Mhm.
of Nova Scotia. That's all they say. Okay, but there were barber shops. There were barber shops.
Mhm.
You name it. It was
But
a city within the city, and the folks were mad, big mad. And
exactly.
and so that is what that's about. And so what I say to, again, the folks who want to run their fresh mouths, here's a little history lesson for you, telling us to go back to where we came from. Rosemary
Mhm.
and I are here in Canada, and we have every right
Mhm.
to be here. Our ancestors have paved the way, they're pioneers. And so telling us to go back, we've been here. Okay. And we
Yeah.
built a lot of this
A long
country.
time.
But as I
Yes.
said, stay tuned because there's more. There are other areas. There's Amber Valley, there's Priceville, there's Hogan's Alley. There's a bunch of places in Niagara even where it was built by Black people. So I will continue this series for sure. And if you would like me to continue, by all means, drop a thumbs up in the chat and we will keep it coming. So now we're going to move
Awesome.
on to the next thing, which is
Mhm.
hockey.
Let's
Because
talk hockey.
let us
Let's
talk
do it.
hockey, because here again is another example of the anti-Black racism that exists systemically in this country for sure.
Mhm.
But if we're going to be talking about hockey, there are a lot of Black hockey players today in this century that play hockey, and they go through a lot of anti-Black racism because Canada seems to think that hockey is a white man's sport.
Mhm.
So with that, whenever you have maybe one or two Black hockey players, they're faced with all kinds of anti-Black slurs, things like throwing banana peels on the ice, doing animal gestures, the animal that I can't say on this platform, but it starts with an M. So,
Mhm.
you can imagine, but I'm doing the gesture, right? They do that and do the what is it? The sounds. They will taunt the parents of the Black players. They do all of that. But what they don't know, or maybe some of them know but don't care because they really do think that they own the sport, is that it was created by Black people. Oh, you didn't know that? That also
Uh-huh.
comes out of Nova Scotia, by the
Yeah.
way. It's called the Colored Hockey League, and
Mhm.
it has been around since 1895.
That's
Not
right.
only that, it's a Black man who created the slap shot. You know that
That's
slap
right.
shot that you see people do, that people who go to hockey are just can't wait to see a slap shot happen
Yep.
by one of the
Mhm.
folks? It was us. It was
Thank
us.
you.
It was a Black man. Also goaltending and all of those fancy things that you see happening. It
Mhm.
was Black people.
I know. I just have to say, right? Because the British, they love to take things from other people and then claim it as their own. But I guess it's a part of the others and what they do. But one of the things that people like to say is that, oh, it was created by people of British descent or Irish descent, and they had these other games. Yes, yes. But however, the actual game of hockey was created by Black people. And the fact is that not only did they create it, but they also improved on the game as well. They improved on the safety of it, and they came up with creating a flat puck that would be safer and would travel in a more controlled way on ice. That was the thing that the others didn't like, that, oh, these people, they're so fast on the ice. And what we've seen too over the years is not just the ingenuity on the ice, but also the whole thing of how the teams worked with camaraderie, with competition, and setting down the rules. And it got so bad that the press did not want to even cover any of the Black Hockey League's games, so that it would be something that would be underground. Nobody would know about it, so it wasn't important. And then, because they wanted to press the Black Hockey League even further, Emma, like, can you understand this? Can you believe this? They tried to push them out completely, because then Africville became a source of contention and a place where the others wanted to take over. And the way to do that is that then hockey rinks stopped giving allowance to the Black Hockey League to be able to practice there. So they couldn't practice, they couldn't have proper games. And what would happen? The league started to die because
They would
there was
die.
no support for it.
Yeah. There was 8 to 12 teams back
Yes.
back in that day. 8 to 12 teams is a lot. When you think
Yes,
about
yes.
it, back in the 1800s, 8 to 12 teams is a fairly large league. But you know what? I can show you better than I can tell you. So let's just look at a little history of, because I see in the chat that people are saying they didn't know that hockey was invented by Black people. So let's just take a look at this league and give them their flowers.
An all-Black hockey league that existed from around 1894 until 1925. that the players were black rather than white is rather profound, because when you look at the history books, there's absolutely no mention of this league in 99.9% of the hockey texts. This was the first league to allow the goalie to go down on ice, the first league to create an offensive style of goal play, the first league to create the slap shot. In some ways, it may even have been the first professional hockey league. Once the story starts to be told and then more and more evidence comes to light, we're going to have to rewrite our history books in order to recognize once and for all that the true innovators of hockey were not middle-aged white men with an English background.
Did you hear that, family?
Uh-huh.
We need to rewrite the history books because they don't want to say that it was black people. But let's just talk about the slap shot. Let us give him his flowers. Ladies and gentlemen, meet Eddie Martin, the inventor of the slap shot, okay? And Rosemarie talked about the puck. The other thing that a lot of this league also invented was goaltending, and the way that goaltending is done, and the way goalies position themselves, and all of those stylistic things. They used to call it even like certain ways that the puck was hit. They call it butterfly shots, and they had actual names. And of course, you know how the folks are. If they're going to steal, they're going to change the name, right? So the folks, stole it. But here's Eddie Martin. And then also body checking was also invented by black hockey players. So, when you're watching hockey and you see the way they're checking each other in the boards, none of that was by the folks. It was all us. It was all black people, okay? It was black people. And, true to everything, music, the culture in general, fashion, sports. You look at any sport, as soon as a black person comes on deck, look at golf.
Yeah.
I mean, boxing, baseball, football. Who are you got a couple of, you got the Tom Brady's, and in basketball there's sprinklings of the folks that are good, like what's his name, Larry Bird, and people like that, but it's always like one-offs. When it comes to black people, how many greats in basketball, how many greats in football, how many greats in baseball? Like, I mean, come on. And it burns the folks' britches. I know it burns your britches. I'm sorry to tell you, but we're going to keep exposing the thieves, okay? We're going to keep exposing the thieves. It's not going to stop. But a lot of people in the chat are saying, wow, I didn't know this.
Yeah.
Yes, family, and there's so much more coming that you didn't know, okay?
That's so true.
The next time you go to watch hockey, because I know it's more popular here in Canada than it seems to be in the US. And if there are any hockey fans, the next time you go to watch hockey in the US, you'll remember this now.
Exactly.
And yeah.
I mean, even the name, right? Even the name of the Great White North is the connotation is not just about snow, right?
No, it's not.
And then when you look at hockey, the fact that the original all-colored hockey league was squeezed out, so that in 1911, I believe, was when they had their last official games, because at that point, the whole issue about Africville was so hot that no one would allow the hockey teams, the black hockey teams, to practice. So the league died. And then it was about a good 10 years before the league resurfaced again. And they had some success, but it wasn't enough time, because after that came the Great Depression, and then it was all over. So we have this history of hockey. And when you add the flavor of blackness to it, I mean, there's something to be said about the original. And although people don't want to admit it, there is an original template, and then everything else is a copy of it. And whenever the original does something, everybody wants to imitate it. The problem now is that we're not getting the credit for what we do. And from back then, I mean, we have no excuses now, because now it's the 21st century. We have no excuses as to why we're not succeeding, because of all of the challenges that our foreparents had to settle this land, to have a culture and a life and a lifestyle, and all of that, all of the challenges that they had from Tulsa to Nova Scotia and all of the places in between. We have so much to rely on and to look back on with pride to galvanize us to continue to go and move. And just from the health perspective of it, I love that in sports, our Black brothers were doing their thing and our Black sisters came and started doing their thing too. But when we're talking about hockey and the original all-colored hockey league, health was so important to them that it wasn't even a thing. It wasn't something that had to be discussed. It was just an activity that people love. And we have to get back to that, because now when everything is about all of the gyms across North America and across the world, and we've got the worst health outcomes of Black people, especially in the United States. Then when you flash back to Nova Scotia and Africville and the all-colored league, there was no great incidence of obesity or heart disease or type 2 diabetes the way that there is now. We have so much now that we now need to look at how can we make it back to the way that it was, that it is a part of our lifestyle and not something that we have to go and seek out, like go and get a gym membership. I just have to say that because the health.
Oh, yes, girl, bring the health,
so
bring the health, bring the
me.
health perspective. we really do, because when you look back, like you said, you see them playing. They're all lean, they're all in shape, and they move with such precision, and they're just so skilled, right?
Mm-hmm.
We need more of that. All of the things, the blood pressure, the blood sugar, the diabetes, the this, the that, and we're always at the top of the ticket. So we need to get back to that. We need to, because even if you look back, on the American side, you look back to the days of Tulsa. You don't see a lot of obese people walking around. You just don't. Right.
No.
So we definitely need to get back to that. And considering that the people that came from Africville were sick too, on top of everything else, but yet, and not living, in the most humane of conditions, but they still managed to make everything healthy for them. Okay.
Yes, they did. They did. And that is something that we can learn from, instead of just being spectators of our history. We have to, okay, this is probably the most animated. Somebody in there says that it's a conundrum because they thought that Rosemarie Havsom was AI. No, I'm not AI.
Oh, now you know she's not.
But I am very, very polite. So I got to get rid of some of the British out of me for when I'm doing reports. But the thing that really is amazing to me is how healthy your mind has to be to not only deal with the trauma of being uprooted from your original country, then being promised to have all kinds of amazing benefits in a new country. And then you get to the new country and it's still the same old, same old. The only difference is you don't have the label of being a slave. The amount of mental resilience. And guys, if I can only say one thing, and that is the food that we're eating is not going to help us gain that mental resilience and that mental strength. All of these things about anxiety, depression, negative thoughts, low self-esteem, all of these things can be traced back to food. And the one thing that our foreparents had, especially here in Canada and in the United States, what they had was they had the benefit of eating real food. So that even if it was just the gizzards or the oxtail or the pig ears or the snouts or the cow foot or whatever it was, even if it was
chitlings
just
and all that stuff,
you know what I mean? It was still organic. It still was food that they could eat and their bodies knew what to do with it. So we've got a twofold problem, is that we have to look at how we can get back to eating real food and how we can learn to use our mind and feed our mind with the right kind of food. But this whole thing about the hockey league is just amazing to me. I just
it is I really added that because I was thinking of the two things in Canada that we hear a lot, which is go back to where you came from when it comes to anti-Black racism, and then the sport that they love to call the white man's sport. and it is still dominated for the most part by white players. You're starting to see more and more black players, but it is very like tips heavy on white players. But just seeing so many stories of black men, young ones in school, all the way up to young adults that you suffer through racism. I felt like this was the first two to start with, but as I said, this is going to be a series. But I am so fascinated by the Colored Hockey League, and what else I'm really glad about, Rosemary, is that living in Canada, growing up in Canada, and never knowing about these things growing up in school, because they didn't teach us any of this stuff, right? So the fact that we live in a world now with all of this technology where we have access to all of these resources, that I'm buried in the history. So like I said, stay tuned, family. We'll be bringing more and more and more of this history, because I think it's super important that everybody knows what Black people contributed to this country, because people really do not know. We get a lot of people that come and visit Canada, and they just love Canada, and they love the people, and everybody's so nice. And we that are here, we know what's really going on. And I'm not suggesting Canada is an awful country. I mean, it has its positives for sure, but for a Black person's reality versus a white person's reality is two different things. So,
sorry, Emma, you just reminded me of something, but finish your thought, huh?
Oh, I was just going to read Midlife Secrets. She said, "Oh, wow, I thought Canada was less prejudiced than the States. It's sad." She said her slave grandfather was in Canada before coming to the States. There were a lot of even inventors that are Black that ended up moving to the United States. And I'll be sharing those inventors as well. That's coming up too, because they're Black. There are Black inventors here. Go ahead, Rosemary. What were you going to say?
Yeah, I was just going to say that the history of Black contribution to all of the world is slowly being eroded. And that is something that we need to really get on board with, protecting the history of who we are and where we come from. And that's in Canada and the United States, because in the United States, there's been a very quiet erasure of Black history from the records. And there's been a group, some people say that it's FBI, some people say that it's CIA, I don't know, it's all alleged. But there's a specific group of people that are going around to all of the areas where there's documents that are being kept, so libraries and other archives, to erase details about Black contributions to the world or to the United States. And they're even going as far as getting rid of books as well. So books written by Black authors who are considered to be, I don't know, maybe they're considered to be too controversial. Toni Morrison was one of the authors whose work is being erased out of the archives in the United States. So our American friends, look into that and see what you can do to protect your history, because the same thing has been happening here in Canada. That, as Emma, as you said, not only do we not get it taught in our schools about what our Black history is, nothing about Africville was taught in school. I didn't learn about Africville until I was an adult, and I'm talking big adult.
Same.
You know what I mean? So it's amazing that Black people have so much that we've given and have so much to offer, but we need to make sure that we protect our history.
Exactly. And we protect it and make sure it's taught to the babies coming up after us when we're no longer above ground. What's left for them? We have to make sure that we have a legacy and, generational wealth and all of the things that our babies need to have in this here world.
Yeah.
When it comes to Black people. Thank you, Midlife Secrets. Thank you. We will definitely be coming back with more, because there's so much more. But the other thing that I wanted us to talk about, Rosemary and I, is, we talk about this history, and we'll be talking about it more for sure, because there's plenty, as I said, in Canada that people don't know about. But we also wanted to talk about what would it really look like if all Black people, and I'm talking about North America, not just Canada, but the United States as well, if all Black people said, you know what? I've just about had it with the folks. I am done with the Beckys, the Brads, the Karens. I'm so over being racially profiled when I walk in a store. I'm so done with, my son being pulled over and racially profiled by police. We're done. We're just done. Okay. And we all decided we're out of here, and we pack up and we go. And we're starting with the United States. So there's a sister I think her name is Jamila, who recorded a video where she asked chat what would happen if all Black Americans left the United States and went back to Africa. She used Africa. And this is what she said chat told her would happen to the United States.
Since there's so many of y'all on here talking about go back to Africa, you should go, blah, 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 I decided to ask ChatGPT, Chat, what would happen if all Black Americans left the U.S. and returned to Africa? And one thing ChatGPT do not do is lie, baby. So this is what ChatGPT said. This is food for thought for everybody who's saying go back to Africa. So first, Black Americans make up 14% of the U.S. population and contribute significantly to healthcare, education, sports, entertainment, government. And a sudden departure would create significant labor shortages. That's one. Two, Black Americans contribute over $1.7 trillion annually to the U.S. economy. A departure like that would create a sudden loss of economic power. 3, Black-owned businesses which employ millions of Americans would shut down or relocate, shifting the wealth to whatever country all of us went to. Number 4. Now this one gonna really piss you off. This one gonna piss you off. Loss of cultural influence. Black Americans, and I quote, Black Americans have shaped U.S. culture through jazz, hip-hop, and blues, fashion, language, and sports. Their departure would significantly alter America's cultural identity. Of course, we know that there will be a shift in elections, particularly for the Democratic Party. There won't be a need for NAACP and Black Lives Matter. But here's where it gets good again. A decline in innovation. Blacks foster creativity and innovation. The loss of racial diversity could slow technological advances. See, y'all ancestors ain't tell y'all how sick y'all was. See, y'all before y'all found us, y'all was fighting each other. See, ain't nobody passed that information on to y'all. Y'all don't know about all that. See, our people passed information on. Y'all people didn't. Y'all wanted to be lost in translation, but we know. We know. We know. So.
I mean, and that's the United States, okay? That's the United States. And it would be a hot mess express. Truly, it would be a hot mess express. And do you know what I think would happen too? I feel like some of the folks would pack up and follow, because at the end of the day, there's nothing. There'll be literally nothing. So I decided I was going to ask ChatGPT the same question, but I was going to ask what would happen if all Black people left Canada. Okay, left Canada. What would the state of Canada be? Is everybody ready?
Let's hear it.
Number 1, it says the economy will take a nasty hit. So, Black Canadians are deeply woven into the country's labor force: healthcare, transportation, education, arts, trades, tech, public service, small business ownership. You name it, we're in it. So, remove all Black people and remove all of that, right? Hospitals lose nurses, personal support workers, doctors, techs. We know that there's, personal support workers in Canada, a lot of them come from Africa and the Caribbean, okay? Transit systems lose operators and maintenance staff. Retail plus service industries break down. Entrepreneurship drops off a cliff. Number 2, cultural production would flatline. All right. Black Canadians innovate in music, film, literature, tech, academia, business. Take that away, and the country becomes bland, like unseasoned chicken bland, like, boiled chicken and mayonnaise sandwiches, like that. Okay. Canada's cultural exports: toast. Toronto and Montreal's reputation as a global urban cultural hub, gone with the wind. Festivals, fashion, food scenes, nightlife, broadcast media, all wiped. Okay. Arts and entertainment and sports would collapse. Goodbye Drake, The Weeknd, Julie Black, Cardinal Official, Hayes McKellen City, Raptors, CFL, film TV production loses massive percentage of actors and crew. And what people don't realize is, regardless of the anti-Black racism, Canada heavily benefits from Black creativity, okay? Yes. And the receipts don't lie. Toronto would lose its entire global identity. Toronto markets itself as multicultural, but so much of the city's actual identity comes from Black communities. Oh, which Black communities, you ask? Oh, let me tell you. Caribbean and West African population shaping the food, music, slang, nightlife. Caribana bringing in around 400 million in economic impact every year. Scarborough, North York, Brampton, Jane and Finch, Weston Road, and downtown communities losing thousands of residents. Toronto becomes way less vibrant, way less global, and honestly, way less cool. Okay. Number 5, social justice movements would disappear. So Black communities have led, okay, or powered human rights organizations, anti-racism education, police accountability, gender justice, immigration rights movements. If Black people left Canada, wouldn't magically become post-racial. It would just lose the people who've been pushing the country to do better. We can expect less public pressure from equity. Yep. Less activism. Yep. Less awareness of system issues. Increasing complacency within the institutions. Well, that's already there. They seem to still be complacent. And then number 6, Canada's global reputation would be damaged. Oh, and Rosemary, how much Canada does not want their reputation damaged. When the UN was reviewing Canada, oh my goodness. Why do you think there's so much news that they bury or don't give us the race of what's going on? If there's a hate crime, they won't say, they just say a 35-year-old man attacked. Like they really like to, water that down. And let's not forget when they quietly erased all of these places where the name started or ended with the N-word, like the creeks and the mountains and all that stuff. They try to do it on, fly under radar, right? So Canada's global reputation would be damaged. Canada already gets side-eyed internationally, like I said, for how it treats Black and Indigenous communities. If the entire Black population left, countries would be asking what kind of mess made a whole demographic walk out. You're right. The UN, all of them would be like, wait, what's happening here? Right. So they would be under major scrutiny and they would have to explain themselves. Exactly. There are already people in charge of immigration, like Lena Diab and, the public safety minister, Gary Ananda Sangari, who can't even answer a question. They can't even answer a question about what's going on immigration-wise. Can you imagine if they had to answer a question of why Black people left this country, it
Oh
would
my goodness.
it would not look good. Whole neighborhoods would empty out. Mass
Mhm.
migration would lead to housing market chaos, sudden labor shortages, decreasing school enrollment, loss of businesses, cities losing tax revenue.
Mhm.
Canada would lose its soul.
Yeah.
Okay. The sounds of the cities, the slang, the food, the art, the celebrations, the sports culture, the social movements, the community resilience. Canada without Black people isn't Canada. It's Canada minus a group. So the bottom line is, if all people left Canada, the country wouldn't just change; it would unravel socially, culturally, economically, politically. We already know
Absolutely.
Black people's economic dollar is 1.3 trillion. So
Yes.
if Black people were to take our 1.3 trillion and leave North America, and I'm talking about Black Americans as well, look, they would probably be trying to be on the first thing smoking to get us back there.
Hmm.
Trust.
Yeah, of course. And it's interesting too that in Canada, the Black population is such a small percentage, right? Like in 2021, they're saying it was like 1.3 million people were Black. And I'm saying, okay, now what's the population of Canada again? We're over 33 million people, right? So we're like about a tenth of the US population. And such a small group of people who are considered to be less than by the others. But yet, the list that you just read, Emma, it's just so telling about how much Black people contribute to wherever they are. It's amazing to me because it's kind of similar to what's going on in the United States. It's a very small population of Black people, Black Americans, but the culture, the sports, the swag, like everything that you can think of, Black people are leading it. But we're not getting the accolades for it. We're not getting the recognition for it. And it's the same thing in Canada. And again, it goes back to mental resilience and being able to withstand the pressures coming from the others to try to make Black people feel less than. And there's a huge, you know what I mean? Like there's a huge situation in Canada right now with anxiety and depression, where they're saying that one in four Canadians has a mental health issue. And the mental health issue is usually depression. And if you're thinking about it, when you look into it, it's again not represented by Black Canadians. The numbers are about the others who make up those statistics. So what are Black people doing? We're still thriving and surviving and doing what needs to be done to get ahead and to live in this great white north, as they call it.
Exactly. And I see that some people are saying we're not Black because we're West Indian. First of all, I'm not West Indian, so you don't know what you're talking about. You have, at least if you're going to tell me I'm something, at least know what you're talking about before you say that. I'm not West Indian. And secondly, we are Black. So let us just shut that down right now. So if you don't think we're Black, it's very simple. Just exit this live, because you're not on the right
Really?
live stream. Then if you don't look at me
Yeah.
and see a Black person, so let me just address that.
That's got to be a
You're asking
troll.
what our Lala Brown is saying. What's our slang? Well, you know what? A lot of people like to call patois slang.
Yeah.
Broken English by African people is considered slang. And to be very honest with you, the folks, whenever they want to talk Black, what's the first dialect they go to, Rosemary, when they want to talk Black in this country? When the folks want to talk Black, what is it that they
Oh,
try to emulate?
it's always wagwan, everything iron.
Yes, it's patois. Yes.
So annoying.
So
So annoying.
so that's, I guess, would really be considered slang here, right? So yeah.
Yeah. It's there's so much. Like even just like I'm just looking at the slang and sorry, I'm looking at the chat and I'm just like, oh, okay. Some very interesting things that are coming up in the chat. And I'm just wondering, like, okay, are we having some trauma release here or are we being trolled?
No, you know what? There's a subset of Black Americans who keep saying because you're not FBA, you're not Black. And for me, it's like I'm not even trying to listen to that because
Yeah.
at the end of the day, you, me, Rosemary, and whoever you are saying FBA, we walk down the road, they're not seeing no FBA, no West Indian, no African. They're seeing a Black person. So you can FBA all you want. I'm not even trying to hear that. We're not even addressing that. We're not even giving that any life. At the end of the day, our purpose for being here is that we're here to talk about the fact that the folks here in Canada love to tell us black people, to go back to where we came from. You know why? Because they only see us as black people. They don't see us as FBA. They don't see us as African or West Indian. They see a black person. And so they tell us black people, go back to where you came from. And so the reason why we are doing this live is because we want to school everybody on the black people and their contributions to this country. So in that, we have every right to be here. So to the folks who keep telling us go back to where you came from, you first, because go back and do your history research, educate yourself. Since the 1600s, black people were here and paved the way for us black people that are still here. So we're not going to go unless we want to. And I already gave you a whole list of what will happen if we go. So carry on.
Well, I do want to address something that Lala Brown 1705 says. She's asking, or the person's asking, they speak that on the islands, right? Like Trinidad, yes, they speak Patois on different islands, different versions of it. And yes, the others in Canada take on Patois to try to be cool in Canada. And you'll hear it and you'll see a straight on lack of melanated person. I don't even know how to say it. You'll see the others there full on, okay? Irish, British, whatever, Scottish background, descendant, and they're full on imitating Patois. And they hang out.
They sound horrible. They sound horrible. It sounds ridiculous. I want to just say to the folks who keep doing that, stop it. Please stop. It's just really not respectful. It's not. We don't go around talking with a British accent or a Scottish accent. We don't do that. So stop it. But we have to wrap up because, you know, we've reached the hour mark. But, you know, thanks so much to everybody for hanging out with us. And as I said, we'll be back with more. And these are two black women that are saying goodbye, and we shall see you again on the next one. Please look out for it, and also follow Rosemary. Rosemary is dropping some real gems on this channel about our health, so it's super important to follow Rosemary. You know, hit that notification bell so you know when her uploads are coming. You know, follow Rosemary. She's really dropping some. I've even learned so many things that I didn't even know. And I'm one person that really takes charge of my health. So you're most welcome, Midlife Seafreaks. Thanks so much for tuning in and staying with us. And if you want some more culture, we'll show you some more.
Show that next time.
But
yeah, please, like, you know, if you're on this live and you really want to have hard-hitting health topics, tell me what you want to hear, and I will be happy to share information with you. You can also check me out on my YouTube channel, which is Havsom. But this is such an awesome space for us to talk about everything positive for our Black people, regardless of where you're from.
Exactly. So thanks, Rosemary, for hanging out with me. We'll be back again. And thank you again to everybody. Don't forget to download the African Diaspora News Channel app from your Google or Apple store. You definitely want to get that. We're talking about Black people. We're talking about a platform that's made by us for us. Go head over there, download the app. We shall see you again. Until then, please be safe, everybody, and be healthy.
Definitely. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you, Emma.